We're back. The Overrated Experience Sports and Sports Betting Podcast is here in the new year, and we're ready to rock. We're ready to roll. It's time to go. It is NFL, College Football Championship, and much, much more here tonight on the Overrated Experience Sports and Sports Betting Podcast. Join the Sports Betting Podcast, your favorite betting podcast, and on X, Overrated EXPER2. That's Overrated EXPER2. And wow, I'm out of practice. I haven't done this in a year. Technically, not a full 365 days of a year, but it's been a while. Many weeks since our last broadcast, so excuse me being a little rusty, but there's been a lot of betting action, a lot of things going on, Christmas, travel, a lot of things that distracted me that I couldn't get time to put out a podcast, talk to the listeners out there. And if you haven't joined us before, this sports betting podcast is called The Overrated Experience, and it's from a square bettor's point of view, where you join my journey to learn this thing we call sports betting. I'm not here now. If you're on Instagram, you see many guys floating money around. Videos of people cash. Here's $100,000 I've put on the Raiders. Like, who the hell are you? Do any of you guys bet with betting services? I mean, not bet with them, but like consult and pay people for their picks. I'm wondering, are those people out there? I don't know. That's not this show. That's not why you're here. You're here to kind of come along with my ride and join the journey. So, welcome. Hope you stick around. Join us on X, Instagram at Overrated Experience, along with Facebook Overrated Experience. Drop us a line. Tell us what you're doing. Throw us some picks. I know I will on X to try to put some comments out there, not just on football. And football is kind of our focus right now with the College Football Championship winding down or winding up, depending on how you look at it, because we got 2 games to go this week leading into the national championship game, 6 wildcard games leading off the playoff 2024-25 season, NFL playoff season, which is spectacular and amazing, and we're going to be all over it, and we'll get to that in a moment. But first, I'm just going to touch upon some of the things we missed since the last time we had a chance to get back together. You can also catch us on, I'm all over the place here. Again, rusty as goddamn hell, okay? So a little rusty on navigating through this podcast, so bear with me. But if you look at the Overrated Experience is available on, and if you're hearing this, obviously you picked a provider, but it's also on YouTube. You can actually find us on the YouTube channel if that's your preference. Apparently, a lot of podcasts, many people listening on podcasts prefer going to YouTube, whether it be video or non-video. Right now, this is a non-video podcast. I don't know if you guys can handle, the video portion if we go down that road. We'll see in 2025. But New Year's resolutions, everybody has New Year's resolutions. The issue, do you stick with them? Do you hit the gym? The gym's packed for 2 weeks and then they're gone. Do people start saying they're going to drink less? Probably, until Super Bowl hits and they get smashed and you can't get to work the next day. So a lot of New Year's resolutions when it comes to the betting side of things. There are lessons to be learned when it comes to being a better going into 2025. Things you may already know, but things that you won't follow because it's discipline. Discipline is one of the big things. And I'm talking from experience here still. Myself, trying to learn the best habits to be a better. And some of those things that I know I am going to try to do a lot better. And that is, try to record my bets to maybe pick up on some of the, maybe I learned that I suck at football. And maybe I'm great at soccer. Maybe I suck at basketball, but great at hockey. Maybe I'm better at props, and then I'm better than, like the spread. Maybe I, validate, which I already know. Same game parlays are not the way to go to make money in this thing we call sports betting. It's a sucker's bet. But I do it anyway, and you'll hear me give out some same game parlays just for shits and giggles on each of the NFL wildcard games. And those are the things I need to learn. Now, what I will recommend, if you're listening to this podcast on Spotify, there are several amazing resources there if you actually want to sit down and take the time to learn. And I know I'm doing it, and I'm listening to Sports Betting for Dummies, which just goes over a lot of the good habits, using units and your bankroll and finding value. A lot of it is finding value and trying to save your money and focus your wagering and don't get too emotional from a loss or a win or because the game's on TV like I always do. So a lot to be learned, and there's a lot of free audiobooks, and that's what I'm listening to on Spotify with my premium subscription. Sports Betting for Dummies for free. And you pop it on, in the car as you're driving to work. You pop it on as you're shoveling the snow. Whatever you need to do, but it's very valuable, and there's tons of stuff out there if you don't have the time to sit down and actually physically read this information. A lot of good information there. So that's one of the resolutions I'm doing. Try to educate myself more and take this thing seriously. Outside of that, what's been going on in the sports world? NFL wrapped up regular season, 18 weeks, 17 games in the book for each of our teams. A lot to kind of work through on here, and as things unfold affecting the betting market, you have a hot debate when it comes to MVP or, Super Bowl futures. Let's do quickly Super Bowl futures so I have that up. Right now, we're going to be looking at FanDuel, so anything I reference is going to be based on FanDuel, so keep that in mind if you're using another book, and the odds look different. But as of now, January 8th, when you look at the Super Bowl outright winning odds, the Detroit Lions, yes, the Detroit Lions, who knocked off the Minnesota Vikings Sunday night to take the number one seed in the NFC, home field advantage throughout the playoffs, are actually ahead of Patty Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, which is kind of surprising. The Detroit Lions did get a few bodies back on the defensive side of things, but still appear pretty banged up. Do you find that justified? You have plus 320 for Detroit and plus 370 for Kansas City. Baltimore trails behind at plus 550. Buffalo plus 600. Philly plus 650. Minnesota plus 1,500. And I guess that really tells the story right there when you look at after Kansas City 3-4, and that's Baltimore and Buffalo. The challenge seems to be a little more daunting. I like that word, daunting, when it comes from the Kansas City side of things in the AFC versus maybe the Detroit side of things, where you look at a Philadelphia Eagles team, where we'll talk about it when we review the Packers-Eagles matchup, where the Eagles are a little banged up. Jalen Hurts looks, he's not even 100%, it looks like, and didn't start practicing to Wednesday, today? And I don't know if he's officially cleared concussion protocol, which is kind of, weird. I thought that would be covered up by now. He's had some time, but we'll see what happens there. Vikings looked a lot, so let's say, maybe not the Vikings per se, but Sam Darnold looked like Sam Darnold pre-Minnesota Vikings on Sunday night, where he was all over the place, looked like he was a deer in the headlights, missed a lot of open throws, especially in the red zone. Does that get repeated on the road against the Rams on Monday night? We'll see. And you look at the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills, what do we got with the Buffalo Bills, right? They're back in, they got their game against the Broncos. Josh Allen right now is, let me just check the playoff, not the playoff, but the MVP, Future Fusion. What the hell's that? Okay, never mind. Super Bowl MVP, of course. Guess who? Patty Mahomes is plus 450. Conferences, draft, novelty, Super Bowl halftime. Never mind. Where's my MVP? Wait, that's gone. Did it leave? I'll come back to that. But last time I checked, Josh Allen was leading quite significantly odds over Lamar Jackson, which how do you pick between the two, right? It was week to week, depending on who put on the flashier performance. And last couple of weeks, it seems like Lamar Jackson to me may have stepped ahead of Josh Allen. But something maybe to keep an eye on if you're interested in actually betting on those kind of awards. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about voting. People voting, not actual outcomes in games. So temper your expectations that you can really handicap this effectively. What also I would recommend as a fun activity and maybe value now. Now is the time to jump on this category when it comes to NFL, and that is the NFL draft. And if you haven't checked it out leading up to April, late March or April, I can't remember when the draft exactly is, but you'll hear enough about it. Not just trying to find out who the number one pick is, but it gets really in depth that certain guys, when will they be drafted, over under this round, position, how many defensive linemen will be drafted in the first round, quarterbacks, all that sort of stuff. A lot of fun things to look at. So take a look at your book and what's available for the NFL draft. Right now, what's posted is the number one pick overall. And if you haven't heard of Cameron Ward, the Miami Hurricanes, he is listed as a minus 125 to go first overall. And the Tennessee Titans, who are going to be drafting first overall, need a shakeup, to say the least. The Tennessee Titans will be, and I can't imagine going away from drafting either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado. He's listed as number 2 plus 105. Now keep in mind, things may alter between now and the time of the NFL draft. It always does. People were nuts on their NFL pro days. Really significantly changes things. So now's the time to jump on the board, jump on some of these. Like Travis Hunter, the Heisman Trophy winner, the Colorado Buffalo wide receiver / cornerback, is plus 1,000 to go first overall. And he might have been at the top of the board if the Patriots would have held down that number one pick, as they got Drake May and maybe don't need a quarterback. So keep an eye on that. And if you're going to jump on something, jump on it sooner rather than later to find the biggest value. A lot of things going on in the NFL world. And again, we're going to focus on the NFL now at this moment for the most part, even though this is a betting program that will discuss many things. But this is the world of the NFL, and this is the playoff NFL season. Just can't get around it. That's got to be the number one topic. So a lot of coaching changes that are going on. The coaching changes include Peterson out in Jacksonville. Don't know what their direction is. They're a dumpster fire, right? As the Jaguars are one of many teams that seem to not know, or let's say not have a plan. They don't have a plan. They got Trevor Lawrence. They're holding on to their GM. Apparently, Shad Khan, as he was talking about, Doug Peterson looking for a new coach, that he might not even keep his GM if the coach he brings on decides that that's a GM he can't work with. Really weird, uncomfortable, the guys on the call as this comment's being made. The Las Vegas Raiders fired Antonio Pierce. And I think a lot of these changes are based on, let me see. Okay, so let's say Mayo is gone in New England as well. So let me comment on probably the thought process for some of these owners when they pull the trigger on some of these firings is either they have somebody in mind that may not be available outside of a short window, the Vrabels of the world or the Ben Johnsons, and they feel they can hire them, and they got to make a move now or they're going to be too late. And I think in the situation in New England, I guess their succession plan was to go from Belichick to Mayo. The expectations that the Patriots had, I just don't understand. They had probably the worst roster in the NFL. Little talent. The whole goal of the year was to transition Drake May as their starting franchise quarterback, which looks like they have. There's one thing to have a plan. We're gonna kind of like take it easy this season. We're gonna focus on development and the draft, et cetera, and then you get into sitting, in the owner's box for 3 months or 4 months, and actually having to sit there and watch your team fail, even though that was probably your expectation when the season kicked off. I think it eats, and the competitive nature comes out in these owners, and their pride gets hurt, and they really start thinking, do I have the guy? I mean, we had a really, really shitty, really garbage season. I can't stomach this anymore. I'm in my 70s or 80s or whatever it may be. How many seasons do I have left to enjoy this team? Do I have the right guy? Do I have enough time to see this coach develop? Is there things that he has done that I see that this team taking another leap, or am I going to have to fire him anyway next year? And I think that's part of the decision making that has taken place, especially in New England. The Raiders, I think they got, again, Mike Vrabel on their mind with Tom Brady. Apparently, report that they're actually going to reach out to Belichick because he has an out clause with the University of North Carolina, which is quite shocking because the whole thought of Brady, who's part owner of the Raiders, leaving New England because he didn't want to be under the tutelage of Belichick any longer. So which is kind of wild to watch that play out. So we'll see what happens there. Also, what else is going around in the NFL? Other coaching moves. The Giants are going to keep Daboll, which I guess, what do they got to lose? The Giants are kind of in flux right now. They're kind of going nowhere. Does Aaron Rodgers stay? What does his career look like after which looks like going to be leaving the New York Jets? Is his career over? What do the Jets do? Are they going to be a dumpster fire for how many years? I got to think they will be. So a lot going on in the NFL, a lot of things to play out. But take a look at some of those betting options for fun, especially the draft. I think you get a kick out of that if you haven't looked at that before. But let's get into it, man. We got a lot of football action going on. Important matchups starting tomorrow night. Thursday night, we have the Orange Bowl, the semifinal of the college football championship. And honestly, I don't know if you've liked the playoff format they put in this year, fresh this year, 12 teams, 8 teams play week 1, 4 teams get a bye. I think some of the question was some of the rankings. I mean, Ohio State had to play, and some of these teams got a bye, which didn't make sense because you could clearly see like teams like Ohio State are ridiculously above many of the teams out there, and some of the other teams like Penn State, clearly a class above the Boise States of the world who got a bye. So a lot of tinkering probably going to go on, but love the idea that you have a 12-team format. You can follow along. It takes place when a lot of us are off for the holiday. And I think it gives an opportunity for a lot of bettors out there, a lot of fans out there who were not following the week-to-week college football action to kind of restart and get along the journey in that 12-team tournament. So I like it, look forward to it, and I love the fact that we got a semifinal game Thursday night, Friday night, with the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Texas Longhorns on Friday. Obviously, tomorrow night we got the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Penn State, Nittany Lions. A lot of excitement going on there, and then we got a double games on for NFL Wild Card Weekend. Houston, which just paint them into the early game on Saturday. Like I can't remember a time when they did not open up on a 4:30 on a Saturday afternoon. And then you got the Saturday night Ravens Steelers. What a downfall for the Steelers, losing 4 straight. Really pissed away their season. Like they're a dead man walking right now. But the only thing that they got going for them, at least maybe I'm crazy enough to think, is that they have a divisional matchup. They're going to be playing a team for a third time, and they do have a winning pedigree where they could surprise Baltimore. I know you think I'm crazy saying that. We'll come back to that in fuller detail. And then you got Sunday 3 games. Sunday night is a bit surprising that the Commanders and Bucks were scheduled for that primetime game, but that's a great game to exciting teams. And then we got the continuation for the last couple of years of having a wild card game on a Monday night, and that's going to be the second best team in the NFC, coming in as the 5th seed, and that is the Minnesota Vikings taking on the LA Rams in LA and SoFi Stadium. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll cover that. But first, we got to cover the 2 big games in college football and get us ready for it. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna go as much depth. It's more of just giving you a heads up of who I'm looking at and some of the things to think about. I'll get more in depth on as I follow the NFL a lot closer. But really love the fact that we get to have all this action kicking off tomorrow. So tomorrow night, as I stated, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish are taking on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Notre Dame's a 1.5 favorite. This is the Orange Bowl. This is a neutral site game. This game will take place in Miami, where the Miami Dolphins play Hard Rock Stadium. And we got a battle of two teams that, are like to run the ball, probably keep things tight. Notre Dame knocking off Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, which was delayed, as you probably do know, based on the tragic events of what happened on New Year's Day in New Orleans. That game was pushed back, so the Notre Dame Fighting Irish are on less rest than, let's say, the Penn State is. Now, if you look at some of the going forward, some of the resources to look at as far as getting information, Bet the Board, a podcast that I would definitely recommend. Amazing insight. If you like really in-depth coverage of both NFL and NCAA football, Bet the Board. If you can't get enough, that's a place to be. That's the podcast to listen to, and they go really fully in-depth, more than you probably think they would. All right. So that being said, I just lost my page here, so let me get back to it. So please talk amongst yourselves. As I stated, Notre Dame, 1.5 favorite. And the money line, minus 122, plus 102 for Penn State. Over under 44.5. I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to bet any unders, despite maybe leaning toward under. I can't do it anymore after... And I'm doing it. This is like a flashback. I'm just jumping into a conversation I wasn't planning to talk about. If you remember week 17 of the NFL season, the Lions taking on the San Francisco 49ers. Lions already know ahead of time that they have 0 to play for on the road in San Francisco and everything to play for the week after in week 18 against the Vikings for the number 1 seed overall. And I thought, no way in hell that with the Lions, at least for the entire game, play their starters. Oh man, lesson learned. How did I forget Dan Campbell's their head coach? Don't get me wrong, amazing coach. Obviously franchise difference maker, turning an organization around into a Super Bowl contender. I did not think, knowing that this game meant nothing, he would keep those starters in the entire game. And all he did, and all of those teams did, was march up and down the field, score. I took a same game parlay, put an adjusted over, took the under, skyrocketed the over. I couldn't put it high enough. Could not put that game high enough. That game was over by the third. My over was exceeded. My under was crushed. My same game parlay was ruined. 5 minutes into the third quarter, it just no more unders. I may talk about it, I may like it, but I'm not putting my name behind it, for God's sakes. Fuck the unders. This is overrated. That's the experience we're going to do, and we're going to stick to overs. I mean, I'm not going to lock myself in 100% to that, but I'm going to be very confident that I'm going to probably stick to overs as my bias. Okay, so I'll let you know that so you're aware where my mind is at. So that being said, in this game, the lean seems to be everywhere I'm looking, is the under 44.5. The thought is that, these teams are going to keep the ball on the ground, which leads to more clock running all the time. Obviously, if they're putting the ball in the air and there's more and more incompletions, the clock stops. And, I just got to feel these teams are going to grind it out. And they're not going to go to the air as you might see in the next game on the Friday night. So, I mean, if you are looking at the over-under, which I'm not, under seems to be what people are thinking is going to take place in this game. But again, I'm an over guy. So let's get over that and move on. I, for some reason, am looking at Penn State to win this game outright. Now, I say that the money line is plus 102 and the spread is plus 1.5 and minus 112. And you might think, well, you know what? It's not anything less than 2.5. You might as well just go money line. Man, if you've been watching the bowl season, many times, like I have been saved a few times during the bowl season with that 1 point. And I'll tell you, sometimes you forget that in 2024, now 25, when we're in the fourth quarter and we have a late touchdown where an extra point can tie a game, that teams are more 50-50, if not more. I'm sure the analytics and the numbers crunch will tell me I'm way off. It's either one way or another, one way heavy, but I'm thinking it's more heavy towards coaches putting up those two fingers saying we're going for 2 and going for the win. So be careful to look at that 1.5. And remember that the overtime rules are different in college football than they are in the NFL. So you know what? Let me just go on record here. I'm going to take Penn State. I said money line earlier, but you know what? At minus 112, I'll take that juice. I'll take the 1.5. That way, let's say Penn State is up, a point. Let's say they're down a point, right? No matter what, as soon as they decide to go for 2, despite barring a penalty where they get pushed back and change their mind and go for the extra point, if they decide to go for 2, you got that win. Because they either make it, where they win by a point, or they don't, and they lose by a point. You're in a good position. So that's exactly why those 1.5s do become valuable, even though on the surface they may not. So I'm going to take Penn State 1.5 minus 112 in FanDuel. That's going to be my play. And then you got, heading into Friday, you got the Sugar Bowl. Not the Sugar Bowl, Cotton Bowl. Sugar Bowl or Cotton Bowl? Can't remember now. It's in Dallas. No, not the Sugar Bowl. That was the one in New Orleans. Never mind. The Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Jerry's house, Jerry's world, what do you want to call it, where the Cowboys play. And what we have is we have the team. We have the powerhouse. We have the juggernaut. We have the Ohio State Buckeyes, 5.5-point favorites over Texas. And if you looked at Texas's journey, they handled Clemson, but it was, it was up in the air for a bit. Clemson stayed in on the road in Texas. And then if you watch Texas almost choke, and maybe a missed targeting call or a targeting interpretation call away from losing to Arizona State. The Arizona State team came back in the fourth quarter, tied it up, went to overtime. Texas looks shaky. They don't look invincible. And then you look at Ohio State, who just crushed Oregon, the Oregon Ducks. After earlier in the year, going on the road into Oregon, losing in a close one. But Ohio State looked dominant, crushed Oregon in the Rose Bowl. It is hard to look at the 4 teams remaining and not see Ohio State as the odds-on favorite to take the whole thing. And you're thinking, wow, that's not shocking. I'm just mentioning because my next point I'm going to make is Ohio State is minus 140 versus the field. That tells you how the betting public thinks of Ohio State. And I got to also mention that when I look at the spread, I don't think 5.5 is enough. Some books have 6. I got 5.5 on FanDuel, and I'm going to take it. 5.5 on FanDuel. I see the Ohio State Buckeyes mishandling, inappropriately demolishing the Texas Longhorns. And let's add on the over of 53.5. Let's go there. Let's see what happens. I think Ohio State easily takes this and eventually takes the championship. If there is a team that is going to give Ohio State any sort of trouble, it's going to be Texas versus, I don't think Penn State and Notre Dame have what it takes to keep up with the Buckeyes. So 5.5 Buckeyes, take the over. And then also team total. Ohio State is listed as 29.5. Again, I think Ohio State's not going to leave anything to chance. Put the foot on the gas. Put the foot on the gas now and take the Ohio State Buckeyes big time. Big time. All right? So that's what you got on that. That is the NCAA football, college football championship. Absolutely fantastic tournament. But now we're on a Saturday. I mean, are you still sober by the time you hit Saturday morning? Like I'm telling you, Thursday, Friday, you're leading into Saturday. The only thing that sucks though, Saturday morning, is that there's Bundesliga starts again, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, which is fantastic. But the betting on FanDuel has restricted some of the, same game parlays that you may take and enjoy. Like corners has been removed. A lot of things have changed and restricted. And of course, in the favor of the book. So I tend not to go to Bundesliga anymore. EPL is where it's at. Now it's FA Cup weekend. So a lot of the games that are being played are, just not English Premier caliber. So I don't know if I'll be touching the FA stuff. But then we get to Saturday afternoon. That's where wildcard game 1 of 6 kicks off. And like I said, the Houston Texans seem to hold the slot. If they make the playoffs, win a division, have a home game, they're playing their early game on Saturday, like this game, against the Los Angeles Rams. Herbert comes in as a road favorite, 2.5 points. Can you believe that? 2.5 points. And I'll tell you what, just before I get into this game, I'm going to give you my thoughts on the spread and if I'll take the over-under or not. I might give the over-under, maybe not a spread pick. And I'll also give you just each game I put together a quick same game parlay. Again, these are not the way you're going to make a career in sports betting, but they are fun. And that's, if you're looking to have fun and put a few dollars and get some plus money, then go for it. So these are just some suggestions in each of these games that I would do. So this one is not too long as far as a review goes, but some of the plays I like, including props, are I am going against the public here. I, for some reason, have a little more faith in a struggling Houston Texan team. D'Amico Ryan, defensive-minded coach for the Texans. I just think that he's going to cook something up where it's going to box or at least hinder some way, somehow, Justin Herbert. Either he's got a check down or something. He's just he's too smart of a defensive mind not to have something cooking and able to bring to the table that the Chargers not prepared for. So I'm going to take the Houston Texans plus 2.5, but I'm hoping by Saturday afternoon that's been bet up to 3, and I definitely jump all over that. Some of the props to kind of keep in mind in this matchup: Joel Mixon for the Houston Texans running back, still one of the main focuses of this offense. Really has done a great job since he's come over from Cincinnati. Obviously the Houston Texans have been without Stephon Diggs for quite a long time. The Houston Texans have lost Tank Dell later in the season, where he was probably C.J. Stroud's most effective receiver. Nico Collins is back. How effective can their passing game be? C.J. Stroud the shine's come off a little bit, but he's still. This is his time to kind of shine, bring in his A game. But I think it's going to be on the ground. I would give Joel Mixon over 71.5 yards. I'm going to say it's over. I'm going to say he's going to have a game Saturday. And on the flip side, that Lad McConkey, is going to have over 71.5 receiving yards. Receiver for the Chargers. He's been the go-to guy. A lot of chunk yardage. A lot of action from Justin Herbert. The main go-to guy. Good value at -114. So let's go with that. Justin Herbert. I'm going to contradict myself here. So I don't know if I kind of put this bet early before I looked at this. I said, there's good value on Herbert plus, touchdown passes over 1.5, plus 148 for 2 or more. Now, keep in mind, I was on X and I was coming across one of our folks, guys I follow, Rob Zola, some interesting insight. And he had a clip today talking about people referencing, this guy has done this 5 out of 7 games, or he's done this 3 games in a row, whether it be touchdowns, rushing yards, or passing yards. And he made a comment, it's correct, right? What's the context? The number is the number, but what is the context? And, if you look at, we'll get to the Baltimore matchup, and you look at, let's say Derrick Henry's rushing yards last week, he had a monster game on paper, plus 100 yards. But it came all on a lot of chunk plays in the second half. I think he had 30 yards rushing in the first half. And you could say, yeah, he got the 100. But, in the context, how he got there, there's a story to be told and how that may impact your betting. So, for example, Herbert, he's significantly gotten 2+ touchdowns. I think I screwed up my note here, but last 5 games in a row, he's had 2 or more passing touchdowns. So he's putting the ball in the air. They're not necessarily punching it in the goal line. And so I'll still stick by that bet. This is just value there, plus 148. And Herbert's the guy. Jim Harbaugh is putting his faith of the Chargers in Herbert's hands, and Herbert's shown that he can carry this team. And he's going to put the ball in the air, and having an over-under of passing yards of 231.5 to me, and -114, way too low. Way too low. Take that over. And your same game parlay for this would be take an alternative Texans plus 7.5 spread, along with Justin Herbert over 200 yards passing, and the game to go over 31.5. You put $100 on that, you're going to win a profit of 115. Or you're so inclined to find a plus bet on a same game parlay. I'll leave that to your discretion. We move on to an interesting matchup. Saturday night, Pittsburgh traveling to Baltimore, who for a lengthy period of the NFL season trailing the Pittsburgh Steelers. Remember we panicked? The Ravens started 1-2, lost to the Raiders. It's just insane, right? And now you're looking at, MVP consideration for Lamar Jackson, 9.5-point favorite over the Pittsburgh Steelers in this game, divisional matchup, over under 43.5. It's hard to not argue with the line. Some may say, or at least I've heard comments that, it started out at 8.5 and it bumped to 9.5 because there will be a bunch of teasers out there. Those teasers where people are putting 6 points towards each game that they put in their teaser. So if it was 8.5, it'd bring it down to a field goal that Baltimore would need to win. Now this makes it a little more interesting. For those 6 points, they would be 3.5. But anyway, the thoughts are, to me, is everything states or everything shows that this should be one-way traffic, and that should be Baltimore just beating the piss with a smile out of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers offense has been absolutely horrendous, and we're back to check down Russ Wilson that we've seen with the Denver Broncos. I think his magic has been deteriorated. Piss poor judgment on clock management in that last game against Cincinnati. And then you had George Pickens, maybe having his worst game of his NFL career. This guy is the man of contested catches, must have not left any butter on the toast last Saturday against the Bengals, because he significantly altered anything that the Pittsburgh Steelers try to get going downfield. He's their go-to threat, right? With him, they got a chance if they put the ball downfield. He wins contested battles. Not last week. He looked like trash. But that being said, this is the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is Mike Tomlin. This is a third matchup between these two teams. These are divisional matchups. And that leads me to a hunch that the Steelers, I'm going to hate to do this, are going to hang in with the Ravens. Pickens can't be that bad, right? You know, he cannot be that bad. And I gotta imagine Tomlin's gonna have a few tricks up his sleeve with maybe even putting Justin Fields in a little more, a little wildcat, a little like maybe split time with Russ Wilson and Justin Fields. He's got to do something. He's got to shake things up. He's got to give a different look. And we know that Mike Tomlin is not afraid to adjust on the fly, aka, you know, removing Fields after a successful start and putting Russ in. So watch out for that. Something significant, something unique that Tomlin does heading into that matchup on Saturday. Now, some of the over-under, to me, 43.5, I think is too low. I think there will be some scoring on this one. And I don't think it'll just be all one-way traffic again. I think the Steelers will hang in this one. So I tend to lean toward the 43.5. And then from a props perspective, anytime you look at Derrick Henry at 99.5 rushing total, I'm going to go with the over. You know, I'm going to take it. He's Mr. 100. He's a focal point of their offense. He's going to break out a big run. He's going to be hand at the rock. It's going to happen. And look at the depletion in the receiving corps. Zay Flowers is not coming back, at least for this game. He's done probably for the year. So they're significantly hindered on offense, the Steelers are, and will probably focus and try to make the ground game and control the clock the way to go. Mark Andrews, Baltimore Raven tight end. Now, interesting, it seems like Lamar Jackson, this is his guy. Like, he wants to feed Mark Andrews. He trusts that if he puts the ball in the vicinity in the red zone with Mark Andrews, that Mark Andrews is going to win that battle. When I look at anytime touchdown and a plus for Andrews, again, here I'm going to throw out a stat, but at least what it tells me is Lamar Jackson is looking for Andrews and relies on Andrews to punch it in the end zone. 6 straight games with a touchdown, a receiving touchdown. And you're going to give me plus 115? Why would the habit change, right? Play action to Henry, Mark Andrews, corner of the end zone, middle of the end zone, edge of the end zone, touchdown. Simple as that. And then we get in to the same game parlay, which you love, and I'm doing it for you. You're going to look at the over-under alternate, 37.5 over. George Pickens, yep, that's right, the guy who dropped everything. George Pickens, 3+ receptions, and Pittsburgh alternative spread plus 17.5. Believe it or not, pays you out $120 on a $100 bet, meaning you get your $100 back and make $120 profit. So think of that, take it in, digest it, consider it, and I'll leave it to you. Okay? And then we move on to Sunday. Buffalo host Bo Nix and Coach Payton and the Denver Broncos in Buffalo. Buffalo, an 8.5-point favorite at home. Interesting matchup. You know, the big accomplishment for the Denver Broncos is obviously, you know, moving on from Russell Wilson. Sean Payton putting a little more little more of his signature on this Broncos football team. Making the playoffs with a quarterback that was picked, the fourth or fifth quarterback taken in the draft. He's had a really good season. And if you really watch from week 1 to week 18 over 17 games that Bo Nix has played, he's clearly gotten better, clearly evolving. And if you're a Broncos fan, you got to be excited that you have a guy that might be ascending potentially to a franchise quarterback. Potentially. We'll see how it goes in the offseason, but I think the buck stops here. We have Josh Allen, betting favorite to be the NFL regular season MVP. So what do we got here? Like, do we fear Buffalo cannot handle the Broncos? Does this game even stay close? Well, I think it's one of those games where, it's in doubt maybe early in the third quarter. And then Buffalo starts pulling away. Bo Nix throws a pick maybe it's a turnover. Man, you can't disagree that the Broncos D is real. They're a problem. The secondary is fantastic. They know what they're doing. Vance Joseph, defensive coordinator. He's a guy to me, he had a crack with the Broncos. Vance Joseph went around the NFL, came back to the Broncos as a defensive coordinator, and now his name's out there for a head coaching job. And I'm like, man, you got to be careful. Like, maybe some guys, and maybe Ben Johnson in Chicago's like this as well, the offensive coordinator, because he is, the belle of the ball. He's the main guy. He's the guy that everybody wants to give their rose to in The Bachelorette. Or The Bachelor. I don't know. I can't remember what order that is. Anyway, is it the fact that some of these coordinators maybe are better coordinators, and that's where they excel when they have the play sheet, they get the play scheme, where, versus many coaches, not all, when you get to the head coaching ranks, they hand over the play calling duties. But, you got examples like Andy Reid, who is, the play caller, and Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco, and McVay, and Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. So it's not, written in stone, but some of these guys are better coordinators than they are head coaches. So I wonder if somebody will give Vance Joseph a crack, and or will Ben Johnson, who will have the opportunity to pick and choose the job he wants from the Detroit Lions, whether it be Chicago, New England, Las Vegas, will he pan out? I don't know. But I mean, just watch the hype. Let's relax. Okay. One job doesn't mean you can do another job great, but I guess that's the only barometer you can measure from, and I get it. So speaking of the Bills and the Denver Broncos, I think it's, the Super Bowl for the Broncos was making the playoffs, having a good season, breaking in a franchise quarterback, and moving on to see what we can do in 2025-26. The Buffalo Bills, they're on the hot seat, right? At some point, they have a window. And the problem with their window has been that they have Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs at the same time, same window that they got to get through. And the best the Bills can hope for is to be the Indianapolis Colts to the Patriots back in the day. Where the Patriots were either in the Super Bowl or the AFC Championship. But they're eventually getting the Super Bowl. If they didn't get one year, they're coming back the next year. So you got to find that year where there's a drop-off. And you're hoping to hell, Buffalo, that this is that year. So I don't think there'd be a problem getting by the Broncos. I think they cover the 8.5. I think if they win by 10, 15. Excuse me. So let's start there. The game, probably under. I'm not going to bet it. Told you. Screw unders. Go to hell unders. Hate you. All right. 47.5. Maybe it's one-way traffic. Maybe it is the Bills' long, tedious marches down the field versus explosive plays, which it could possibly turn into, but I'm going to stay away from the over-under here. Stick with the spread. I look at a few props. So some of the 3 props that I'm looking at right now that I find valuable. Josh Allen, quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, over 39.5 yards rushing. Now, Josh Allen is unique. It's, there's a few quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson as an example, where the game plan is not simply if things break down, break out of the pocket. No, they're calling Josh Allen's number. He's going, he's going to, all parts of the field, he's going to bring on contact and assume contact because of his size and physicality. And I think the Broncos, when you have a defense that's pretty dominant like theirs, they don't see many Josh Allens, right? A guy who's going to, you give me 5 yards, I'll pick up that first down. We're gonna play call, Josh Allen to roll right. He's now a threat. He's an extra body, a significant threat, especially in the red zone, where they have to now game plan. Does that open up? If Josh Allen breaks out in the first quarter where he takes off into the pocket, or Vance Joseph has to, go to the tablet and work out, hey guys, here's what we're doing in the second quarter because he's ran all over us. I'm going to see Josh Allen have a few big runs. And if the defense on Denver is doing what they normally do to offenses, then they're going to see more and more of Josh Allen rolling out, running, so for significant yardage that they got to account for, which will probably soften up the D. So take Josh Allen, rushing yards, 39.5 over -114. Bo Nix, well, like I said, I think the Bills are going to cover the 8.5. I think it's just a good experience. Sean Payton knows that he wants to win. He's going in to win. But the valuable experience that's going to be provided to Bo Nix to start this game, first playoff game in his first year, seasoned college quarterback, spent 6 years in the NCAA football program, a few programs, last being Oregon. 223 yards and a half, -114. I think the Bo Nix and the Broncos are going to be chasing the whole game. He's going to have to put the ball in the air more than he wants to. So I think he does get there, 230, 240, so 223.5 does work out for me. And one on the defensive side, I don't have many of these too much on the prop plays, but I thought Von Miller, I forgot about Von Miller until he got that sack against New England last week where he got a $1 million, $2 million bonus or whatever it was. So he's alive. He's alive. And the whole point of having a Von Miller was for the playoffs, specifically for Kansas City. I don't know how much juice he has in the tank, but some players shine at certain times. And maybe it's Von Miller's time to shine. And with Knicks probably chasing, the Broncos having to go to the air, and of course, Von Miller. Denver Bronco, come on guys, you know this. Denver Bronco, MVP. I'm thinking I'm right on that. No, it wasn't Peyton. MVP of the Super Bowl for Denver. You tell me he doesn't want to make a mark. You tell me that story's not going to happen. When I see one sack for Von Miller, plus 154, there's value there. There's value there for goddamn sure there is. Same game parlay thoughts, again, for those who like to dabble. Bills money line, over under, 39.5 over. Knicks, that's the alternative, by the way. Bo Nix, 150 plus yards passing. And a fourth, which is I only had 3 most of these, James Cook to rush for 40 plus yards. That's going to get you $100. It's going to pay out $130 profit. Think that will play out pretty good. Moving on from the Bills, moving on from the Broncos. We got a matchup that is a lot going on here. Stuck on the Sunday 4:30 slate, which surprising could have been the 8 o'clock game, the 8:30, whatever the time on Sunday night is on NBC. Packers visit the Philadelphia Eagles. Important things to kind of consider in this game, which could or cannot be influencing the current line, which probably is, but I can't tell you how much it is. How healthy is Jordan Love? If you watched the game against the Bears last week, he was shaking his wrist, apparently lost feeling in his wrist or elbow, hit his elbow. Lost feeling in his elbow or hit his elbow, lost feeling in his hand, whatever reason he got pulled out. And it sounds like the comments being made to reporters, it's like, oh yeah, I'll give it a try. It's not, oh, it's 100%. It was temporary. We got pulled out. He got pulled out for caution. It's kind of the comments. I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to put up a good fight on this. Like, is this real? Or is this played up so that, this is for, Philadelphia's ears, that is Jordan Love not as hurt as he's letting on? Is he fragile that, he could give it a go, but really doesn't have much in the tank, and one hit, he's done? I don't know. But what I do know is also reports that Malik Willis, backup quarterback, who also seen time last week, also has an arm issue, an elbow issue or something, or hand issue, and he's not 100%. But as I go through this, I'm going to go I'm going to take the side that I'm going to call bullshit Packers. Bullshit. I think Jordan Love's ready to go. Okay. And even though he's ready to go, I mean, haven't the Packers been kind of flat? Like, it just seems that they've taken a third row seat to the Lions and Vikings in the NFC Central. Just, do you feel like there's no buzz for the Packers? Like, there's something is just diluted here. There's the Packers, to me, when you watch them earlier, they're exciting, got things going on, but they lose to Minnesota, where they stage a late comeback. Jordan Love's banged up against Chicago. They kind of piss away that game. Last minute field goal to the Bears at Lambeau. So they're kind of coming in flat to me. And on the Philadelphia side, Jalen Hurts, I don't even know if he's been officially cleared from concussion protocol. Remember, that's why he missed the last few weeks. And that's where Pickett was, why he was in. And apparently, I guess he did see some practice. Jalen Hurts got into practice, but on a limited basis. What does that mean? What does that mean to the offense? Is this bullshit too? Is this like I am like playing a game here? That Jalen Hurts is 100%, but I'm going to show that you might have to prepare for Kenny Pickett and spend time. I don't know. But what I'll tell you is that I am going, again, to look at this game based on bullshit. On the Eagles side as well, that Jalen Hurts, unless, for both quarterbacks, unless things get out of hand, will be in this game slinging and dealing and slinging, whatever word you want to use first. So keep that in mind. I'm going that these two quarterbacks are showing that they're hurt more than they actually are and will be participating a little more than we think they will. So, how I look at this game, I like the Philadelphia Eagles to cover the 4.5. I just think that they're a little bit better coming into this game, despite, if let's say Hurts is banged up, is that the focal point of their offense can be carried by many weapons, including Saquon Barkley, obviously. And they can get by with Kenny Pickett. I'm not saying I would bet the mortgage on them with Kenny Pickett, but they get by, right, with their weapons and the O-line that they have and the abundance of talent this roster has. So this game, to me, I'm going to say it's going to go over 45.5. Eagles are going to cover that spread, 4.5. And I am going to look at a few props here, and that being Jordan Love, 226.5. I got to believe he's going to go over. Again, I'm banking on that he's healthier than he's being, truthful on. He's going to go over 226.5 minus 114. They're going to be chasing. But I also like Josh Jacobs, a combination of receiving and rushing yards, 96.5 yards. Right? Now, I know that Josh Jacobs is more of a runner, but maybe throwing a few screen passes in there. I think he's potentially a 100-yard rusher. Anyways, he's going to get the ball a lot. And if he breaks one screen pass, that obviously significantly adds to the total. So give me Josh Jacobs, running back, Green Bay Packers, over 96.5. Here is, I put in green. So this is something I may sprinkle a few loonies and toonies on, just because I believe I'm calling bullshit on these quarterbacks being that injured. I look at the game specials on FanDuel. Sometimes these things make me bet against my better judgment. And I'm sharing this with you because this is a podcast that is not here to take your money for my advice. This is for you to follow my journey and let's have a conversation about what it means to bet these games. And what I'm looking at here is a combo, Hurts, Love, combo on the passing yards total, 550 between the two, plus 410, which seems kind of juicy to me. You never know. Just never know. 600 yards total. Will one of these guys just go outrageously off? I don't know. But plus 900 tells me that it might be an interesting value play to look at that plus 900. You know, somebody goes 330, end of season desperation. I got to go to the air. Let's see. Got to keep A.J. Brown happy if I'm Jalen Hurts. Get the ball to him. Get it in his hands. Let's go. All right, so those are kind of some of the things there that are not necessarily plays, but something I'm considering when it comes to game special. Same game parlay in this game. Over under 37.5. Of course, that's the alternative line. Jordan Love 200 yards passing. Josh Jacobs 50 yards rushing. $100 is going to win you $123. So again, for you same game parlay folks out there, I'll let you mull that over, chew on that, and see what happens. All right, that's a big matchup, man. Green Bay, Philadelphia. It's kind of like taking a back seat to some of these other matchups. You know, I'm not getting the hype that I would think that a matchup like that would have. And one of the interesting matchups here is, one way I can tell I'm rusty, as I talked about earlier, is that my voice is going. I like getting dry. You know, gotta have to run to get another bottle of water. Man, I'm out of practice. I'm just, or am I getting old? Am I getting old? My beautiful voice, my Barry White type deep voice, it's just not holding up here. Let's see if we can get through this. Get you those plays and your, wonderful listening pleasure to this podcast. Now we move on to the Sunday nighter. The upstart Washington Commanders. And by the way, the more Jaden Daniels performs, becomes a superstar, and if he continues on, nobody will remember that, we got to bring back the Washington Redskins name. No, he will make the brand significant if he continues on the pathway he looks like he's on. Mark my words. There will be no more talk of bringing back the Redskins logo. It will be Jaden Daniels is a Washington Commander, and he's going to put his legacy. The franchise will start its true legacy under that name. So, let's see what happens there. But the rookie heads into Tampa Bay, who just squeaked by the New Orleans Saints. Saints on Sunday had Tampa dead to rights, and then Tampa winds up winning by 8. Spencer Rattler hung in there for a while. Tampa Bay squeezed it out. But, man, that was dicey. Very dicey. And they had balls. They have balls because they had possession where they could just kneel, secure the division title, home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs, but decide, which I get, to get Mike Evans his 8th reception, and I believe it was 84 yards or 86 yards, to collect his bonus, and also to continue with his streak of 1,000 yards receiving, which Eagle ties or puts him past Jerry Rice. Anybody old enough to watch the 49ers back in the day with Jerry Rice and Joe Montana, you'll know how great he was. But they have balls, man. And what I'll say about this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team is they are wild. They are wild. They are going to... They're a bit unpredictable. What I mean by that is, man, Baker Mayfield. If you're not watching the game and you're watching Red Zone and they cut to a Tampa Bay game, it's usually him spinning out of 3 tackles, running for 15 yards, diving head first, or spinning out of 3 tackles that avoids a sack, chucking the ball downfield. Now keep in mind he does get picked off now and then. I mean, he's like a high stakes poker player out there. He's going all in on the field. Anything can happen. Like, he could shit the bed against the Commanders on Sunday night, or he could pull out like just genius, ballsy effort to get by the first round matchup against Commanders. So we'll see. It's going to be wild. So that's why I think the 50.5 probably too low. I think there's going to be points in the board. It's funny because the first game of the season for both teams was in Tampa Bay. Daniel's first game. And if you go back and watch that tape, he's not even close to the quarterback he is now. He tended to take off out of the pocket. Was really a fish out of water. Obviously, that's changed 17 weeks later. It gives the Commanders a real threat, a real promise. But I still believe that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will win. They're a 3-point favorite. They'll cover, even though Washington could very well win this game. But I believe Tampa Bay will squeak it out. And Commanders got a lot to look forward to, it looks like. And kind of looking at some of the props here, Baker Mayfield, man, he's been rushing a lot. And if things go haywire, I think he'll tend to put the team on his back and just go. So 17.5 yards, minus 114 for rushing yards for Baker Mayfield. I'll take it. I'll take that over. I'm on it. Now, we also have over 5.5 receptions for Mike Evans. It's minus 140, and I put that down in case you were going to do, funny enough, if you're going to do a same game parlay, which, funny enough, the one I'm going to give you doesn't have that, so I didn't really correlate that to my thought of putting same game parlays on there. What an idiot I am. But if you're looking at potential same game parlay receptions, 6, over 5.5 for Mike Evans might be the play. You know, if you look at the history, again, we're looking at numbers, and numbers say one thing and context means another. It's up and down. He's, got games where he's got well over 5.5 and games where he doesn't. But I got to believe that an important matchup like this, even with Lattimore on Washington, or Sean Lattimore, cornerback, I didn't know if he's playing, but he was traded from the New Orleans Saints. And if you've looked at the history between Evans and Lattimore, cornerback, now for the Commanders, a lot of rough stuff, a lot of physical action. Lattimore, really covers him well. But he's been injured. I don't even know if he's going to actually go. I should check that out. But the Lattimore's been is he going to be 100% to cover Mike Evans? I don't think so, if he plays at all. And then you got Baker Mayfield pass plus rushing, 259.5. I said earlier, I like the rushing total. I think 17.5 is too long. Sorry, too long. Too short. And then you throw in, he's just wild, man. He's like, you don't know what's going to happen with Baker Mayfield. And he could throw for 300 yards, much less, throw and rush, pass and rush for 259.5. But I'll take my chances on Baker to exceed that total. No problem. Go Baker. So that's the play there. And we come to the end. We come to the Monday Nighter. And as I stated way earlier in this podcast, Minnesota losing to Detroit, losing the opportunity to be the first seed in the NFC and have that first week bye and home field advantage throughout the playoffs, kind of crushing. Red zone opportunities pissed away. Sam Darnold, just outmatched by that Detroit D. And you tell me, as a Minnesota Vikings fan, you tell me, Coach Kevin O'Connell, probably the best coach, favorite to win Coach of the Year, at least betting-wise. You tell me, even Sam Darnold in his own head, there was not, this is New York Jets, Sam Darnold. This is, Carolina Panther, Sam Darnold. This is, San Francisco 49er backup skill set, Sam Darnold. Not 15-2, Sam Darnold. But it might be. I don't think it will be. I think maybe Detroit's got his number, which is scary because there's a chance there could be a chance that he goes back Minnesota has to go back to Detroit to play again. And right now, Vikings are a 2.5 point favorite. Sorry, 1.5 point favorite. I'm sure that'll fluctuate before kickoff on the road against the Rams. What do the Rams bring to the table, right? I don't know what you get to the Rams. They knocked off the Vikings earlier in the year, but a lot of people focus on it. It was a short week for the Vikings. It was a Thursday night game. And actually, the Vikings were at 14-3, and their 2 losses to Detroit was also accompanied by that 1 loss in LA against the Rams. These Rams. What do you got with the Rams? I don't know. I mean, really curious that, they sat everybody against the Seattle Seahawks in Week 18, and they still had a chance to avoid the Vikings or the Lions, instead host the Commanders. But they decided, hey, I'm happy with making the playoffs. I'll take on anybody. That's a huge fucking mistake. That's a huge mistake. I don't know what they were thinking. It may turn out, excuse me, in their favor. But, as a lower seed, the lower you go, the quicker you're going to cross paths with the Detroit Lions at some point. And I'm hoping you want to avoid that. But now you're crossing paths with the Vikings. And if the Vikings play the way they can play, and they have played most of the year, you might be in trouble. So that being said, I'll take the Vikings 1.5. Again, Sam Darnold could just be on a couch in a psychiatric office right now, panicking that he's reverted back to, like I said, New York Jets, Sam Darnold. I don't know. But I'm going to roll with the 1.5. They're going to be better in the red zone. The defensive scheme is not, I don't think the Rams are going to be able to play man, which Detroit did against Justin Jefferson, and be effective, or they'll probably get crushed if they do. So let me take the Vikings. But are we going to be really surprised if the Rams do turn? Like, sometimes when they're on. Stafford just can't. He makes throws that are insane. He's on his game. I don't think it's going to happen here. But, this very well could happen. And if I look at some of the parlays that I'm looking at, and the parlays props on this one, is Minnesota, Justin Jefferson. He's got to play. You got to feed your guy. 90.5 pass receiving yards. I think you got to go with it on the over. And then you have Puka Nacua, who is obviously the guy now. Cooper Kupp taking a back seat to Puka. And credit Puka. He's the guy because he's everywhere, right? He likes contact. He's a good route runner. Not the fastest guy in the world, but he's everywhere on the field. And Stafford throws it up to him. And that doesn't change. So I'm going to go with Puka's going to get heavy use. And I'm going to take the over 7.5 receptions, -114 for Puka. And when you look at the same game parlay, which I'll have to go back to the Tampa Washington game because I forgot to give you one there, that for this game, Stafford 200 yards plus throwing, passing. Justin Jefferson 60 plus, obviously alternative receiving yardage, along with Stafford being an alternative number passing yardage. And Puka Nacua 60 plus yards receiving. $100 gets you $102 profit. Reverting back to the Tampa Washington matchup, same game parlay. Like this game to go 41.5 over, alternative total. Jaden Daniels, this is kind of a tricky one. I said he's going to have 40 plus yards rushing. All right, it's also an alternative rushing total for a quarterback, Jaden Daniels. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers team total over 19.5. Put those together in a package, right? You have $100, wins you $105 profit. So there you go. Overrated Experience has not been around for a long time. We're back, 2025. We're trying to keep this thing going. Need your help to keep it going. Acknowledge us. Show us that you're listening. Get on X. Follow Overrated EXPER2. Let's go. Let's get 2025 going. This is the People's Podcast. This is the community. I'm trying to think of a word where it's the regular guy podcast. Haven't think of the branding, think of the tagline yet, but I will at some point. Last thing I'll say to this about the football season is thought about the two teams that were granted a bye because of their success during the regular season. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions. If I look at the Kansas City Chiefs, I think they're being ignored. They're still, to me, the team to beat. It's not shocking. I don't think I'm shocking you, but I think a lot of noise has been around Buffalo and Baltimore. And kind of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are probably becoming annoying to bettors out there, to fans out there that don't want to see them get to another Super Bowl. But I think you might, especially having to go through Arrowhead. The opportunity to knock them off was when they had to go on the road and they walked through Buffalo and they walked through Baltimore last year. So I think they're still who we think they are, with more weapons this year than last. The Lions, probably the most likable team in the NFL. You want to see them win. You want to see them get to the Super Bowl. I can't believe that the change in Jared Goff, franchise quarterback, elite quarterback. I would love to 5 years ago listen to a podcast where you hear me saying Jared Goff is an elite quarterback. Wouldn't believe it. Couldn't buy it. Would think I'm AI generated right now. Somebody's putting words in my mouth. But it's true. Dan Campbell, one of the greatest coaches in the NFL, by far, has turned this program around, put them in this position. Now, it's easy to give him credit because when he wasn't here, they weren't even close to achieving, an NFC championship matchup, an NFC number one seed, home field advantage. Connect the dots. Dan Campbell is the main reason, obviously, along with their GM and a lot of the personnel decisions they've made. Bang on. But what I'll tell you about the Detroit Lions is what's going to be their source of success may also be their downfall. And let's watch, and I hope I'm wrong. Man, I'm getting rusty here. My voice is going. Let's get this in before it goes. Well, I hope I'm wrong, but there are signs that, if you look at the NFC Championship game last year, some of the play calling, some of the aggressive play calling, I could say, on fourth downs that helped them get to the point last year, the NFC Championship game, maybe weren't the plays to make. Maybe were not the calls. Maybe it was field goal time on maybe two occasions because of the situation of the game where you had, you were leaning on the 49ers. You were leaning on the 49ers. And keep in mind, the play calls weren't even that bad. These are drop passes. These were good passes that were dropped and just not executed. But it took points off the board for a game you had in complete control. And the game of football is based on clock management and squeezing teams where they have to make moves faster than they want to, put the ball in the air more than they need to, keep the ball off the ground, giving you an advantage to know that they got to go to the air. I don't think he played that one right because he stuck to a philosophy, a no matter what philosophy. You've seen signs of this year where he gains the respect. Damn it, he got my respect. Even the game against the 49ers I referenced earlier, nothing game. Played his starters. He didn't have to. He didn't have that issue where, I got to play him in week 17 because I won't play him in week 18. No, you were going to play him in week 18. Fine, start them. But play him 60 minutes? I don't know. It's a risk. They got out of it. I don't think they got too damaged, too banged up. So good for him. It worked. And they probably contributed potentially to the game against Minnesota where they locked up the number 1 seed. But even during that game, a couple plays stood out to me that, wow, I don't know what you're doing and why you're doing it. It's just the way you do things, regardless and with disregard of what's going on. The first sign was going for 4th and inches and dropping back to pass, which, yeah, you're going to catch the team off guard, but you're already leaning on this team. You have the personnel to pick up that first down. I don't know. Like it's almost like it was overkill, and it's kind of like a part he plays. He's got to keep up the aura of that, that gimmick of gambling Dan Campbell, right? Like playing blackjack, and you're holding a 20, and the dealer's got a bus card, and you're like, hit me. You look amazing when it happens, but you get the ace to make 21, but you didn't have to. You risked it all. And there was another play where the Minnesota Vikings could not punch it in the red zone. One of many times. I can't remember if this was the first or second or third. In the first play on the goal line, he's jacking it up. Goff's jacking it up 50 yards downfield and gets picked. Like, it's just, what were you thinking? You let the Vikings off the hook. It played out for you. You got that number 1 seed. You're clearly the better team. We're all cheering for you. But will that come back, that mentality of going for it no matter what, going to somehow cost the Lions? Whether it be the first game of the playoffs, the NFC Championship, or God forbid a Super Bowl. Because I think it cost them in the NFC Championship. They should have been playing in that Super Bowl against Kansas City, not the 49ers. The 49ers were a leaking ship heading into that playoff. Should have been knocked off by the Packers. Should have been knocked off by the Lions. And just couldn't keep up. They kept up, went to overtime, but just couldn't close the deal against the Chiefs. And now you see that the 49ers' time might be done. Or maybe it's just a one-off. But my point is that Dan Campbell, great coach, significant, impact to the city of Detroit. But will there be that scenario where he decides to do Dan Campbell things that may keep the Detroit Lions from achieving the ultimate goal? You know what I mean? So keep that in mind. Hope I'm wrong. I wouldn't mind seeing the Detroit Lions win it all. Funnest team to watch in football, maybe sports. So all praise to them. Anyway, I bent your ear a little too long here. You know what? I don't care. Pleasure was all yours. We got almost an hour and a half podcast because I haven't been around. I had a lot of things to say. What a hell of a weekend. Even UFC big card this weekend. Hope I got the right weekend. Do I? Let's check that quickly before we go, before I make myself a liar. I don't want to be a liar. Don't want to be a liar. MMA. No, I'm wrong. Sorry, 18th, January 18th. Look for that card, big card there. Forget what I just said. So here we go. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You sit back, you watch, protect that bankroll, God damn it. Let's get some wins, take the overs, let's do something for good. Let's make some money. Overrated Experience is over and out. Bye-bye.